Hello and welcome, everybody. I'm so excited that you all are here. We have a really great interview for you today, all about meal planning, meal prepping, and how to make that so much easier. Unfortunately, that's always a critical step to starting to eat cleaner, eat healthier, is the preparation. And oftentimes I find that that can be something that we overlook, forget, or just feel like completely unsure of how to do any of it. So I'm joined here today with Kimberly Brockman. Welcome, Kim.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. So, for those of you that don't know Kim, Kim is in Michigan. She has four sweet babies, and she is a personal trainer. And she also has an online meal planning service, which is just so phenomenal. We're going to hear more about that in a little bit. So, before we really dive in, I'd love to hear from you, Kim. What got you started on meal planning, especially doing something that most people really kind of don't like? Like, how did you get here?
So I became a personal trainer while I was still in college. So it's been over 17 years now. And it just started out like the way trainers do, like just saying, okay, well, maybe you should change your eating habits a little bit. And, here's some suggestions, like here's some foods maybe you could swap out. And then that kind of evolved into, okay, why don't you try these recipes? Like they're really simple. And then at one point that even evolved to me cooking the food and bringing it to my clients like as an added benefit of my
Yeah.
business. And then I at one point started hosting meal prep workshops for them because I realized that that was not sustainable for me to cook all their food. And I mean, it was a great little side gig, but it wasn't sustainable with so many kids. So I started teaching meal prep workshops, and I would put together like 5 recipes. I would put together the grocery lists. I would send the grocery lists out ahead of time, and then I would have everybody bring the food, and we would all prep together, and everybody would leave with 5 freezer meals, and they loved it. It was a huge hit. And then the pandemic came and that was the end of my in-person career. And so it kind of evolved into a virtual version of that where I filmed myself prepping the meals, sent out the recipes, and and that kind of has taken off to like, oh wait, this is really helpful. And now I'm not just working with people in Kalamazoo, Michigan, like I can help people anywhere. So that's kind of how it evolved for me. And like teaching people how to remove the inflammatory foods and still like, the dairy, the grains, and still like have the food taste good. Because that's the thing. I love food. I have loved food my whole life. I have always loved to cook. I want it to taste good. I am not one of those people who are like, oh yeah, you just got to eat, grilled chicken and broccoli for the rest of your life to hit your goals. Like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I like food. So I want to teach people, it's just my passion, teaching people how healthy food can taste good.
Yes, I love that. And it's so important too, right? I think sometimes people kind of see it as like a death sentence. Like,
Yes.
I can't have gluten and dairy or whatever it is that they've had
Yeah.
to eliminate or are starting to realize that might bother their stomach or their
Yeah.
body.
Yeah.
They're like, oh my gosh, now I'll never get XYZ food that I've always loved. And oftentimes I find that it's a journey, right? Like you may have to recalibrate your taste buds. You may have to like retrain your body to no longer crave those foods that are chemically designed to cause you to crave them. But then once you get to this place, I feel like you can find so much freedom and delicious, healthy, nutritious food that is not taking all day long. I think that's another thing that people often, as they're going from like the standard American diet to eating more nutrient dense whole foods, is they're like, Rita, how do you spend so much time in the kitchen? I'm like, I don't.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
like, how do you not? Right. And that's why what you're offering is so incredibly valuable. And I would say, like, I would love a meal prepping party. Oh, I wish I could do that right now.
We used to do it at my kids' elementary school. It was so much fun. I'd have 25 moms get together and we'd all just prep, and it was a great time.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a really great idea. Okay, so for those people that are like, okay, I've never really had a plan before. I always just kind of showed up in my kitchen and threw something together or picked something up in the drive-thru on the way home or wherever they're at. So for somebody that's really new to meal planning, where do you recommend starting?
So, I mean, the easiest way is I have a free program on my website. It has 20 freezer meals, and every meal can be prepped in less than 5 minutes. Most of them, all you need is a knife, a cutting board, and freezer bags. Like, you don't need all this crazy equipment. And honestly, the best advice that I can give is just don't think about it. Like, don't think about it. Don't just do it. Like, don't stress yourself out. Don't dig into the, oh, what if they don't like it? Oh, what if it's too complicated? Oh, this is overwhelming. Like put it on your grocery order, like copy and paste the list of groceries, put it on your grocery order. When it shows up at your house, just take 30 to 60 minutes and prep 5 meals. And that's all there is to it. Like, don't think that hard about it, because the more you think about it, the more complicated and overwhelming and stressful it gets.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that, using the freezer is something that we sometimes
Mhm.
forget that
Yes.
it can be such an amazing tool.
Yes.
And that's something I tell people too. I'm like, you know what, even if you just had some pre-cut, pre-washed veggies that you
Yeah.
threw in a bag in your freezer and pull it out and roast them,
Yep.
like you don't have to wait for them to be thawed. You don't have to, but the
No.
same thing with putting together freezer meals.
Mhm.
It's just, it can be such a lifesaver, game changer in the middle of crazy busy back to school season
Yeah.
weeks, right?
Yeah.
Even for us homeschoolers.
Yes, and then those of us who are crazy enough to homeschool and work at the same time,
Yes, yes.
it's just a whole new level, and now I have a 1-year-old who is into
Oh,
like, we
yes.
just keep buying more baby gates, and he keeps finding new things to get into. And so it's just one of those things, like, I would not survive a healthy lifestyle if I was not meal prepping. Like, because
Yeah.
I don't have to, I just pull a meal out of the freezer in the morning. I either throw it in my crock pot or let it fall in my oven. Like, that's actually, I just put it on a sheet pan and let it thaw in the oven if I'm in a hurry.
Yeah.
Because like, even I'm really bad at remembering to take it out the night before and put it in the fridge to thaw. I'm so
Sure.
bad at that. So I just put it out, pull it out morning of, stick it on a sheet pan in my oven and let it come to come to thaw
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
way.
that's a great idea. And the
Yeah.
Instapot too, for those of you that have
Hmm.
Instapots, that's another great way to kind of
Yep.
save dinner
Yeah.
from the freezer.
Exactly, exactly, and the thaw button on your microwave is really handy too.
Yeah, yeah, good. Okay, so yeah, with a 1-year-old that's very busy and constantly climbing out, what are some of your favorite time savers in the kitchen?
Pre-prepped veggies, pre-chopped, pre-frozen, like, I love them. Gordon's Food Service, I don't know if you have those where you live. It's a restaurant supply store, but anybody can buy from it. You can buy the 4-pound bags of pre-diced onion, and it is my favorite thing in the whole world.
That's amazing.
Because I have super sensitive eyes, and like one slice of an onion and I am bawling. Like, tears are just running down my face and I can't see anymore, and it's just a hot mess. And when I first started filming meals, it was actually a huge problem because I had not learned about pre-diced onions. So like, I'd have mascara running down my face while I was filming. It was a disaster. Um, so I discovered these pre-diced onions and I was like, this is so brilliant. Like, oh my gosh, how did I not know this existed? And you can buy them at Walmart even in smaller packages in the freezer section. So the pre-diced onions, pre-minced garlic, frozen veggies, like, they are just so helpful. The pre-minced garlic does lose some of its nutritional value because it has the most nutritional value when it's freshly pressed. But in like most of what I'm doing, we're focusing on efficiency in the kitchen. And that pre-minced onion just saves or pre-minced garlic, excuse me, saves so much time than trying to peel all those garlic cloves. So that's a big one. And then the the frozen veggies. So the nice thing about frozen veggies is that they are extremely nutrient dense. They're most of the time picked fresh and frozen on site. Whereas if you're buying fresh veggies, you run the risk of, okay, they were picked 1,000 miles away before they were ripe and shipped to you, and ripened, like force ripened along the way. So they're not always as nutrient dense as you'd like them to be. So the frozen ones are still a really good source of nutrients, and they're just so helpful when you're trying to crank these recipes out as fast as you can. And the variety now is so much better than it was 10 or 15 years ago. Like, you can buy pre-diced butternut squash, like, frozen. Like, have you ever tried to cut a butternut squash? It takes forever. It
I
takes
hate it.
forever.
Yes.
It's the
That's
worst.
one of my least favorite
Yeah,
veggies to
yeah,
prepare.
and I'm always like, I am going to slice my hand off. I just know I'm going to slice my hand off. Like,
And peeling it, and they're like bigger than my hand, so I can't
yes,
hold them right, and
yes,
then they get slimy, like when you get the peel
yep.
off.
And
It's so
and now you can go to Aldi and you can buy pre-chopped butternut squash. Like, it's just fantastic. So those pre-diced veggies they're just a game changer.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And I actually want to circle back to garlic a minute because
Sure.
there are these little, I just found out about these and I think they're so cool. They're like little silicone sleeves. Have you seen these things? You
I
put your
have. I know
garlic
what you're
in it,
talking about, to peel them.
and then
Yep.
it just paper falls off. But my other favorite thing for garlic, because I do like to try to, if I'm gonna do like, I always kind of think of a continuum of like, okay, if I have to get dinner on the table and I'm like looking at like frozen pizza or I
Mhm.
don't know, whatever. We can't eat pizza. But if that was like, what we're like gonna have to eat because
Yeah.
we have nothing else, then looking at a continuum of like, yeah, I'm just gonna do, XYZ that's not as nutrient dense and it's still gonna be way better for us than that.
Mhm.
Or like if you were in a situation with like, oh my gosh, I'm on my way home, I have to get dinner on the table in 30 minutes. Like
Yep.
it's either a drive-through or it's something
Yeah.
super easy. This is, that then we're not really talking as much too about like where that nutrient density importance is
Yes.
as well. But if you are able to spend some time carved out on a weekend when you have a little more time,
Mhm.
then I would say too, going back to what you were saying, Kim, about the different veggies, for sure, 100%. Like I totally agree with you there. And then I think we just have this like continuum of like, but if you have an extra 5 minutes,
Mhm.
having like a really good garlic press, I have a
Yeah.
Pampered Chef garlic press that
Yeah, so do I. I love that one.
yeah, so you can just like squeeze it through,
Yes.
ladies. Like you don't even have to take the paper off first.
Yes.
If you're gonna do a bunch of them, sometimes I have my little ones take the paper off the garlic first, so
Yes.
that then I can just like keep going.
Yep.
And
My
I,
other favorite kitchen tool are the food choppers. The
oh
ones you can
yeah,
buy them on Amazon for like 25, $30. They usually
mhm,
come with like a gazillion stupid gadgets that you don't need, but there's a large dice and a small dice setting for usually for those. And they are amazing when if you're doing fresh onions, if you're doing bell peppers, even like I do it for apples and I throw apples like in oatmeal for my kids in the morning.
yeah,
Like it drives my husband crazy because like you slam it, like every slice, and he's like, "What are you doing? Like, why is the whole house shaking?" Um, but those food choppers are
yeah.
absolute game changers. They're so handy. I don't use those in my meal prep videos when I'm teaching people how to prep because I don't know that people are going to have those in their kitchen, and I don't want them to think, "Oh, this is not realistic for me." You can absolutely just use a knife, but
Yeah.
if you're looking for a tool that's going to save you a lot of time, that's another one that's really beneficial.
Yeah, great idea. I love that. Um, okay, so yeah, definitely any other kitchen gadgets that are big time savers that you really love?
The most important, it's not even a gadget. It's just a sharp knife, and it has to be a sharp
Yeah,
knife.
yeah,
A dull knife is dangerous, and it takes up so much extra time. And so I sharpen my knives. I try to run them over a sharpener every other day. I'm not usually that consistent. I also have a husband who is obsessive about keeping all tools in good working order. So he usually sharpens my knives on a whetstone like once or twice a month. So I'm
amazing.
spoiled rotten there.
Yeah.
But a sharp knife is so necessary.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure, for sure. We were just over visiting my mother-in-law, and she doesn't have the best knives. And I was cutting up veggies to go to the beach. We
yeah.
were like, preparing a bunch of stuff, and my daughter came in the kitchen, and she was like, "Mom, you're still cutting cucumbers." And I
Yes.
was like,
Yes.
"Yes, because these knives are not good." And she's
Yeah.
watching me cut. I couldn't even get a straight cut out of it. So then, like, to imagine, like the knives always going like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
on top of not just being able to
Exactly.
go down. And then I get home and I just dice things up really
Yeah.
quick. And that is such a time saver that I think
I'm
we
such
have
a
to
snob. I
enjoy.
take my knives with me when I go to other people's houses.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And I
for sure.
have and it's funny too. Like I have some really good quality Wusthof chef's knives, but then I
Yeah.
also have a set of Pioneer Woman knives that were a Christmas gift like 12 years ago from my parents, and they actually still hold a really good edge when they're
That's
sharpened.
awesome. Yeah,
And they're not overly expensive. Like they're very real. I think
yeah,
you can buy them at Walmart. Like they're nothing
yeah.
crazy. Um, and they actually are pretty good quality. I've been very impressed with how well they've held up, and I am not gentle in the kitchen.
Yes.
So
Yeah. It's true. You're like, get in, get out. Got to get this
yes,
done.
yes.
Okay, so what about the notoriously really hard meals to meal plan, like breakfast and lunch? What tips or tricks do you have for us for those things we can't really prep in advance, or if we can, it's not like freezer meal prepping,
Mhm.
right?
So
What are you
I love soups for lunch. And so that's one of those things, like I will make a huge batch of soup on Saturday or Sunday and then freeze it either in small portions or just package it in small portions and eat it all week. Um, My kids, we do more of like a grazing style lunch for the kids where we do lots of dried fruit, dried nuts. Like usually they'll each take like a string cheese and a spoonful of peanut butter, and then what else do they do? Those are the big ones, the dried fruit, dried nuts, and the peanut butter and string cheese. And then everything else kind of varies a little bit, but they're still getting a really good balance of proteins, fats, and carbs. I do not count macros. I refuse to count macros. I hate it. And I know for some people that's absolutely necessary, but I don't do that for me. I don't do it for my children. I don't do it for my husband. I just try to make sure that there's a good balance. So that's the easiest thing with the kids. I do soup for myself or leftovers for my husband. Usually I send the leftovers with my husband. For breakfast, we usually do either oatmeal or homemade yogurt for the kids. And then for me, I actually do a sausage hash. Again, every weekend, I just cook a pound of sausage and a half a pound of ground liver together. And then I usually throw in some sweet potatoes, some onions, some garlic, and make a big, big bowl of that. I stick it in my fridge, and then I just warm it up every morning with a couple of eggs. So getting a super nutrient dense breakfast, but not having to deal with it every single morning.
Yeah, that sounds delicious. So are you putting your liver, like, are you getting it pre-ground or are you grinding it on the
I
weekends?
have been grinding it. It is,
Yeah.
it's not pretty. It's
Yeah.
I have a meat grinder attachment on my KitchenAid, and grinding
Sure.
liver it's not for the faint of heart. Um,
Yeah.
so if you can get it pre-ground, would highly recommend that.
Yeah.
But it's not hard to do. Like it's a very quick and easy thing to do. And this is something that I started relatively recently at just a recommendation of for some stuff that I'm going through right now.
Yeah.
And uh, and so yeah, so and you can't taste it once it's mixed in with the sausage.
Yeah.
And I just use like a pound of bulk sausage. Like it's nothing fancy. It just doesn't have anything funky added to it. It's just pork and spices.
Yeah.
Um, and it's just so easy. And then the pre-diced onions and pre-diced sweet potato. I usually buy the sweet potato at Aldi, and like I said, I buy the onions at either Walmart or Gordon's. I don't do a lot of crazy over the top fancy shopping. Like I have 4 kids and trying to keep my grocery budget at a reasonable level right now. So I don't go to, all the expensive organic stores or anything like that. These
Yeah.
are very normal groceries that you could buy at a very normal grocery store.
Yeah, I love it. The other thing that I often do with liver too is I'll put it in my high-powered blender. So I have a
Mhm,
Vitamix, but like a blend tech. You do sometimes still have like the tendons that are left intact.
mhm,
But what I like to do is I'll put it through the Vitamix and then put it
mhm.
into ice cube trays.
Oh,
And then
that's
I'll
smart.
pop a couple ice cubes out when I'm cooking like ground beef or,
That's smart.
sausage or
Yeah.
soups that have like especially if it's a red meat with it.
Yes.
But
Yes.
definitely, and I would say too, if you're using pork that's not conventionally raised, like if it's pasture raised pork,
Mhm.
you're not gonna, it has a stronger flavor profile. So it's gonna hide the taste of the liver
Yeah.
more. Whereas something like a conventional raised pork, it doesn't have as strong of a flavor. That's
Mhm.
why it's called the other white meat.
Yes.
But if you eat pork that has been raised on a farm, you are not thinking that looks like white
Oh,
meat.
no, not at all. We usually get half a hog every fall from
Yeah.
a friend, and
Yeah.
it's completely
Yeah.
what you buy in the grocery
It's
store.
so true. Yes, it's so true. So that's something that I like to do a lot too.
Mhm,
And it's so true. Oftentimes, especially if women are having any kind of issues with needing to support their liver, needing
mhm,
to re-regulate, rebalance their hormones, especially as women get older, when we're like 40s and beyond, if we're having a lot of like perimenopausal symptoms, hot flashes, night sweats, those kinds of things, we really have to be supporting our liver. One of the best ways
yes,
to do that is to eat well-sourced liver. So I love that
yes.
you threw that out there. I just want to, anybody
Yeah,
that's listening that's having some of those issues or wondering why would I need to eat liver? Those are some automatic things when people tell
yes.
me symptoms like that I'm like, you need to be eating more liver to support your liver too.
Absolutely,
So good.
absolutely, and another crazy one that I do that most people are like, "You do what?" in the morning is I use, raw egg yolks and raw milk in my coffee.
Yeah.
So it's a super nutrient dense and really quick way to get a lot of those fat soluble vitamins into your system. Um, and a lot of those are, can be a little bit damaged by heat or not as bioavailable after they've been heated. So when you and you can't taste it, you cannot taste the egg yolk once it's mixed into your coffee.
It's
But
true.
I just blend up the egg yolk and the heavy and some raw cream and just throw that in there. Sometimes a little splash of maple syrup, and that's my other favorite like organ support.
Yeah, so yummy. I love it. That's so great. Well, Kim, tell me about how people can find you and about a promo that you're doing right now.
Sure, yeah. So my website is www.veritas, V is in Victor, ERITAS fitness.com. So Veritas is Latin for truth. And so a lot of what I do is based on nutrition because you cannot truly get into great shape unless you are starting from the inside out. So veritas-fitness.com. And for the month of September, if you go to my website and you download the free meal plan, you will be entered into a contest to win a free meal prep kit. And the meal prep kit will have a couple of cutting boards. It's going to have a food chopper. It's going to have a meat thermometer, which is just essential in the kitchen, especially if you're making like pork chops or chicken breast. Like it just makes life so much easier. So it's gonna have like just a bunch of fun little things in there in this meal prep kit. It's just everything that you could possibly need to be successful. It's gonna have the freezer bag stands, you know, things like that.
Love it. Love it. So
Yes.
good. And we'll have the description in the notes of this
Yep.
video for those as well. So thank you so much, Kim. For
Yeah.
those of you that are listening and want more healthy tips and tricks for in the kitchen, also grab the link to my free email series I'm doing over this next year, Healthy Food for All. I'd love to have you get a weekly tip and trick lifestyle hack, just like Kim and I were talking about in this interview, to help make healthy food and eating cleaner a little bit easier in your life. So
Mhm.
thank you so much for listening. Thank you again, Kim, for joining me today. Have a great day.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Bye.